Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180 for the best in Saturday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock, and on 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock Saturday for the best in Saturday Talk Radio, and also for the best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 KERI on Wednesdays at 1 o'clock. Your host is Clay Koerner, and I'm Marty Pay, and behind the big board is Greg Held, our producer. Clay, great show with Melanie Kirkland and Julie Townsend from the King's College of Nursing.
Excellent show, and also with our friend Sally Pipes from Pacific Research Foundation.
I don't think anybody knows Obamacare the way Sally Pipes does. She's excellent. But today we've got a great show lined up for you. Our guest on the phone right now is State Senator Michael Rubio. Senator Rubio, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Hey, thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. And as we mentioned off the air, I my admiration and respect to you. I have a special needs child as well, and unless you've been in that position, it's hard to relate to what it's really like. There's a lot of heartache, a lot of joy in some of the oddest places, but the fact that you've opted to stay with your family is really praiseworthy. And like I say, you've got my admiration and respect for that.
Well, I appreciate it very much. It's truly a blessing, and we've just been very excited through the entire process, and it's there's just gems throughout life, so thank you for bringing it up.
Hey, Michael, we don't have a lot of time, so let's get right to it. I watched recently where you gave a talk about high-speed rail, and originally I thought you were going to vote against it, but then on the Senate floor you made a very interesting speech, and you voted for high-speed rail. You want to explain a little more why you did that?
Sure. Well, if you look back in history, I've been a supporter of high-speed rail back even when it was before the voters some years ago. But like many others, I developed concerns and serious questions with respect to the business plan and the response that the High-Speed Rail Authority, or lack thereof of a response, was providing to Kern County residents and throughout the San Joaquin Valley, including Kings County, Tulare County, and Fresno County. And so there were a number of issues that I brought to the attention of the Rail Authority and the Governor's administration, many of them centering on accountability and transparency. So we insisted on a shakeup at the Rail Authority, that there would be some changes in terms of leadership, whether it was the membership of the board, the executive director, the CEO position. And then we also wanted some greater attention to the agricultural industry throughout the valley, because we know how impacted they will be by this particular project. And then lastly, there is a particular segment that I am in opposition to, and that is the segment that goes through downtown Bakersfield. And so after discussing and negotiating a number of those items with High-Speed Rail Authority members, I was given at least the certainty that it would be worthwhile to move forward with another year, because what's at stake is $3 billion in federal funds, over 100,000 jobs that we desperately need in the valley to kickstart our economy. And so if you look at where the money had to be spent on high-speed rail, did we want to lose that $3 billion to New England or back east, where Secretary LaHood, federal government, said that they would send the money if we do the law? And so we wanted to once and get our fair share in the valley and put people to work.
Well, I've got a couple questions for you on this. One of the questions that I've been burning question for me was when I listened to your speech, you were comparing the Transcontinental Railroad being built to the high-speed rail. Other than Governor Brown being about the same age as Abraham Lincoln, I really don't see the connection. The railroad had rights to the land adjacent to the tracks, and that contract's still in force today, and that's pretty much how they funded it. How are we going to fund this monstrosity? There's no money for it. There's, $3 billion here, $3 billion there, but we're looking at the lowest estimate I've seen is $68 billion. It's gone as high as $100 billion. So where do we get the money for this? We don't have the mechanism that they had when they built the Transcontinental Railroad.
Well, sure, two things. If you look at the speech, I was making the comparison to where it was built and the financial situation that our country found ourselves in. First, the real debate in Sacramento wasn't so much on the merits of high-speed rail. It was whether or not the first segment of the rail should be built in the Central Valley. And this is where the politics really hinges. The critics, the pundits, many of the political observers would want you to believe that The political debate is between Democrats and Republicans in Sacramento, where often it's between rural California and urban California. And so many of those who were in opposition to this particular project would have supported it had all the money gone to Southern California or to San Francisco. And so in the comparison I made was, at the time, President Lincoln got criticized because he wanted to build it connecting the Midwest close to Omaha to a little, town called Sacramento in California, where folks didn't even really know what was back east. And so it was so foreign to them, it was highly criticized. And so just like the San Joaquin Valley, which, by the way, one of the senators on the floor said it was a black hole. I mean, I've heard the valley referred to as an armpit before, but now putting us into the category of a black hole, I think, was very disconcerting. So I was making that comparison along with where we found ourselves, because it's often said the state is broke. It can't afford to move forward with this. And so if you look at where our country was when we built the Transcontinental Railroad, I was making the comparison in that we were in the middle of the Civil War. We had just issued what was called paper money, so that was very controversial. We didn't know where that was going to go.
Right.
The country was nearly bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we had land entitlements, but we also had to go over something called the Rockies.
Well,
and I know both of you are students of history, and you will remember that they even asked Abraham Lincoln, we know that you have a profound faith in God, but is your faith so strong it'll be able to move the Rocky Mountains? No, they did some legislative maneuvering, and they issued more bonds. And so when you look at California, if we were ever going to bond for it, now is the time to bond because our interest rates are so low.
So
now is the time.
So,
let me finish.
Okay.
Now is the time to put people to work because we have so many people unemployed. And then lastly, looking at this first segment, which we could use in the future, do we want to turn away $3 billion in infrastructure dollars? And so that's where I felt that we ought to go.
Okay, but so basically what you're saying is we're going to have to bond over $60 billion to make this thing float? Because,
that's not, hold on, that's not what I said. You can't put words into my
mouth.
I said that we would
would
bond.
Well, I mean, what? Because I know there's supposed to be some private enterprise, but nobody's jumping at the bit for this. So we're basically. Let me ask you this: where are we getting the money?
That's not a true statement either. You've got folks in the northern part of the San Joaquin Valley, private interests that have expressed serious interest in putting private money in to the tune of $1 billion to win over the heavy maintenance facility. And so when you look at building this middle corridor, there's a tremendous amount of interest just within the valley. And then when you look at connecting Southern California to the valley, that's where you find that there's more interest from the private sector. Of course, we need to work that out because if you read the LA Times, you have Siemens and others that are willing to come in, but here's the kicker. They want to design, build, and operate it. Well, if we gave that kind of package deal to anybody, I'm sure there'd be a number of American companies that would come forward and want to, front the bill and move forward with this particular project. Do we have all $50 billion? No. Did I say that? No. I'm saying that should we start now with a particular segment, going from the valley to build the backbone and to develop the test track and put 100,000 people to work? I would argue yes.
Well, when we come back from the break, I have another follow-up question for you on that, okay? We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180.